Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Interstate Batteries. Interstate Batteries has been a proud supporter of the Sportsman's Nation since day one. So if you're looking for any type of battery, from rangefinders to trail cameras to your truck, car batteries, anything, any type of battery that you can think of, visit your local Interstate Batteries retail location and talk with a battery specialist. For more information about the company and all of the batteries that these guys offer, visit interstatebatteries.com. Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. The quarantine is in effect all across the United States, and we're going to be trying to produce some more content that we're going to put out on the podcast. Because of that, we're also going to be having a quarantine sale at bear-hunting.com. We're going to have a few select items up for sale that you can check out. We have some combo packages that include subscriptions, hats, and DVDs that you can buy in a couple of different packages. Check that out. And check out W Hunting Supply during this time. I talked to Buddy Woodbury this week. They're up and running, full blast. And all your dog-related supplies, all your Garmin-related supplies, custom T-shirts, anything and everything that you need, check out W Hunting Supply. Also, hey, spring bear season's coming. This the current situation that we're in the United States, by the time spring bear season gets here, I feel like things are going to be in a little bit better shape by May and June. And hey, we're spring bear hunting. And check out Northwoods Bear Products. If you're hunting over bait in the spring, their commercial line of bear scents are stronger and more powerful than any natural food-related scent that you can put out. If you're running a bait, it only makes sense to invest in some commercial scents to use to attract more bears. We've used them all over the country. We use them on our personal baits here in Arkansas and Oklahoma. Northwoods Bear Products, check them out. And our buddies out in Wyoming, the Western Bear Foundation. These guys are a nonprofit hunting conservation organization representing bear hunters out west, fighting the good fight, doing some good stuff. Check out Western Bear Foundation. If you're interested in some great spring bear hunting packages in Quebec, check out the unique packages that they have made. We've got 10 outfitters that the Quebec Outfitters Federation has requested make special bear hunting packages for Bear Hunting Magazine subscribers and listeners. And if you go to our website, bear-hunting.com, and click on our main banner on the webpage that says Quebec Outfitters, it will take you to the Quebec Outfitters page, which has 10 individual outfitters with individual U.S. packages built for spring bear hunting that range in price from as cheap as $700 for a week of bear hunting up to about $2,500. Each of these packages are going to include different things, and they're from reputable outfitters with our partners in Quebec. Hey, most spring bear hunting is taking place in late May and June, and so check out these packages from our friends at Quebec Outfitters. So we're at the global headquarters.
Yep,
Bear
finally
Hunting
here.
Magazine. Yeah. I've got Jonathan Wilkins with me. Now, you were here yesterday, so this is actually your second time at the global headquarters.
Yep.
But your first time up here, coming up here and being here was yesterday.
Yep.
And we went coon hunting last night.
Yeah, we did.
And so we're going to start this thing off cold and right from the beginning with a sportsman's pop quiz.
Okay.
Okay, and so yesterday when we hunted together, I told you that I had a spiel that I give to anybody that hunts with me. The spiel is really designed, kind of the nature of the spiel, the way it comes across is sort of designed for kids to be able to follow what's happening in the hunt.
Yeah.
Because coon hunting, a lot of times you're turning loose the dog and like all the action's happening out somewhere in the darkness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like a kid could just like sit there and be like, what are we doing? Why
Sure,
are we,
sure.
why are we, what's happening? So I, I want him to know what's going on. I gave the same spiel to you and to Kip Kruger. He's not here. And now James Brandenburg's heard the spiel because he's been with me before. So I have 8 multiple choice questions, actually 7 multiple choice questions and 1 sort of essay question.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're going to see how well you're paying attention last night.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll get right into it. Okay. Number 1, coon dogs would be characterized by a certain trait that sets them apart from other hounds. That special trait would be A, webbed toes for swimming across rivers, streams, and bayous so they can pursue raccoons. B, they are tree dogs, meaning when the game they pursue climbs a tree, they stay there and bark. Special trait. C, they have special nasal receptors that are designed to pick up the vaporized oils of the musk glands of a raccoon. What is your answer?
It's going to be B.
B, they're tree dogs. You were paying attention. So the special trait about a coon dog, because there's all kind of hounds. That's what we were talking about. Is that there's running hounds, like dogs that they're pursuing mammals, basically furred animals that leave in scent trails.
Yeah.
And their whole purpose is just to run them, like a beagle.
Yeah.
A beagle he's probably never going to catch that rabbit. He's just running it.
Or
if
a deer
that rabbit,
dog.
or a
Those
deer
are running
dog,
dogs, sure.
fox dogs, coyote dogs, they're just designed to push game. So if that animal ran up a tree, that dog would just leave that tree and go somewhere else. Go find another one, right? Okay, number 2, you can keep your own score.
All
So
right.
you're doing good so far. Okay, when coon hunting, the first time the dog barks when he smells a track is called A, striking a coon, B, finding a coon, C, locating a coon.
That's going to be A.
A, striking a coon. That is correct. You have
2 for 2.
2 for 2. Okay, number 3. A coon that is in a tree and has not come down from the tree for the night, meaning that it has not laid any ground scent, is called. And we know that coons primarily stay bedded up during the day and come out at night. Okay, so a coon that's been in a tree and hasn't come down is called an A sleeper, B, a layup coon, C, a nested coon.
I don't know that this was part of the spiel.
It was.
It was. Oh, okay. I feel like layup.
Boom!
It sounds
You
good to
got
me.
it. You nailed it. Layup coon.
Hey,
Very good.
I'm gonna say something in my own defense, and this you wouldn't know this. So I am incredibly susceptible to being car sick, and if I'm in the back seat just driving over there, when you were giving me that spiel,
Oh, really?
My stomach was churning.
You should have said something, man.
Oh no, I was trying to absorb, but that's why you were talking. I was like, because I was like, don't throw up in this guy's truck.
I am sorry. I'm
But
really
maybe
sorry
that's
to hear
that's
that.
why I missed that layup part, because I very distinctly remember the 4 different barking mechanisms.
Right.
But okay, but so I got that one. That
Wow.
works.
Okay, man, you should have told me that. We would have put you in the front.
Oh, it's all right.
Okay, number 4. This is going somewhere. Humans and one other primate are the only primates that don't have a baculi.
It's a spider monkey.
Boom. A, spider monkey, B, gorilla, C, howler monkey. You chose spider monkey. You're correct. The only 2 primates that don't have a baculi. You can go look that up. If there's kids in the car or whatever. Spider monkeys and humans, the only ones that don't have baculi. Good answer. So the coon that we ended up killing last night had a
broken one. Yeah.
It was broke.
And fused back together. Yeah.
Yes. I've got it right there, Jonathan.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a bag here on my windowsill. It has about 6 or 7 baculis, and that one is very unique.
Yeah.
It's been
It's a wall
broken and
hanger.
sealed back together. Okay. Number 5, how many rings does the average coon have on his tail?
6. Sometimes 5.
Bam.
A special one would be 7.
Perfect answer. That is correct. The majority of coons that we have here, anyway, maybe other places it's different. I don't know. But here, like 80 to 90% of the coons have 6 rings. If you have one with 7 rings, it's good. Look, here's a coon right here. Let's count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one's got 5.
Yep.
But he doesn't have a black spot on his tail. Usually they have a black, the tail ends in a
there,
black, and it sits. Okay. Number 6. Are you good?
I'm doing good.
Okay, we got just a few more questions here. When a raccoon is being pursued by the dogs and climbs a tree, the dog makes an elongated bark, signaling something is different from the track. Something is different on the track. It doesn't last long. Sometimes it's just one bark. This special bark is called a locate bark, B, a founder bark, C, a tripper bark.
Locate bark.
Boom. Nailed it. Yeah, so when they're trailing a coon and it runs up a tree, sometimes they lose the track. They're moving it. Their momentum is like carrying them in a certain direction, and they're wanting to move in fast. They're running to catch the animal. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch this thing. Well, a lot of times they'll blow past the tree and be like, "Hey, wait, scent's not here." So they circle back around, find that tree, and they let out this elongated long bark. It sounds like they're excited and pumped that it's up in the tree. It almost sounds like an emotional response.
Yeah, it's a cool sound.
Like for them going up. And last night we didn't hear it real clearly because of just how far they were away, and because there's 2 dogs. If it's just one dog and that dog has a really distinct locate bark, and I was talking about how in the hunting world all these dogs are so different. I mean, you might have a dog that doesn't have a locate bark. I mean, like,
really?
they don't have a distinct one.
Okay.
But like a really, like inside of any animal, any kind of animal that you're evaluating for human usage, like whether it be a mule or whether it be a dog or whether it be whatever, you're like looking for these like nuanced things that set it apart. And so these are the kind of things we pay attention to. So a coon hunter would pay attention to what kind of locate does that dog have? That's what they might say.
Okay.
And so, I was taught this and I was told this when I first got Fern, and I didn't know too much about this line of dogs, and honestly didn't know that much about, I'd coon hunted for a long time, but I was learning more about coon hunting. A guy told me, an old veteran coon hunter hunted with me, and he said, that dog's got $1 million locate. That's what he said.
Really?
And I was like, and then I've hunted with lots of the dogs that don't have a real distinct locate. But usually a good coon hunter knows his dog's locate, even if it's really minor. Mm-hmm. But a 5-year-old kid can call Fern's locate.
Oh, yeah. She's got it.
It's just long. And then when she's trailing, it's different. Okay, you're doing great. Okay. Here's the essay question. There's no multiple choice here. At what time period were coon hides worth the most money, and how much were they worth?
Okay, so according to you yesterday, you said that
this is all according to the spiel. So this has, if I was wrong in any part of the spiel, like it's irrelevant. Like this is the all spiel? About the spiel.
Because I'd heard this before, but I'd heard it slightly differently. But you said that the early '80s, we were talking about southern coon pelts, which is what we have here in Arkansas. That you were looking at about $35 for a pelt.
Yeah. What had you heard before?
I hadn't heard into the '80s. I'd heard it was like 77, 78 is when they were getting the most money for them. But within 5 or 8 years there.
Yeah. And that's probably that could be true. I just know that in the mid '80s is when the bottom fell out of the market.
Now, tell me if you've ever heard anything about this. Now, I'd heard that when those pelt prices were really high, that traditionally we think about northern pelts being more valuable and worth more. And as I understand it, the two big fur markets even still are going to be in Asia and in Europe, like specifically like Russia and China. But what I had heard was in the 70s that the market for furs, specifically raccoons, was very hot in China. And because just statistically, a lady in China is going to have a smaller frame, that the southern pelts that were not as heavy were more in demand.
Really?
And so that's why, because like right now you couldn't get $3 for an Arkansas coon hide.
Right.
Right. But I don't even know what $35 would be like right now. That might be $60 or $70.
It really would have been. One time I did, and it was just a Google search. It wasn't a real in-depth search, but minimum wage. In the 70s, and it was not much.
Like a couple dollars or something.
Yeah, $3 or $4 minimum wage, something like that. It sounds bizarre, but when I was a kid in the 90s, minimum wage was $7. Mm-hmm. So it, $4 sounds like pennies, but so if you think about it like that, go out and tree a coon, skin it, sell the hide for $35, $40 even. That's more than you can make in a day of minimum wage labor.
Yeah, I told you yesterday. I said that's all I would have done.
Yeah,
is put up coon hides.
Yeah. So we discussed that. Okay, so now the questions are out of order. I should have asked you this question before we just discussed that, because basically what we just discussed answers this question. But I've got to read it, because it's the final question. The cultural significance of the coonhound was embedded into the Southern culture primarily because, A, hillbillies loved cool dogs and hunting at night, so they memorialized the coonhounds as a cultural staple. That's a pretty good answer.
Okay.
The financial benefits of a good coonhound were significant, and thus they became important to poor rural families. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Coonhounds were first used for hunting in the Mississippi Delta, and traveling writers often recounted their stories in the Western humor literature of the mid-1800s.
I think what you're shooting for is B, but you could probably say all of them, really.
Yeah, B was the right answer. The financial benefits of having a good tree dog were valuable to people. Mm-hmm. Really was. If you were working at a sawmill or were just a subsistence farmer in the Ozarks in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, mm-hmm. By the time we got up into the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was electricity in most places, but society was just becoming more prosperous and a little bit more urban, modern, But boy, back in the day, if you had a good coon dog, that was a legitimate player in the financial stability of your family, or it could be.
No, so there's actually a book that I need to I need to send down to you. It's called Hunting and Fishing in the New South. It's by a guy named Scott E. Giltner, who's a college professor up in northern Missouri. I did an interview with him maybe 6 or 7 months ago. But that book is a really fascinating book, kind of academic in nature, but still very readable. But it talks about kind of the history of African Americans hunting and fishing in the South. And without going too far into that book, which I do highly recommend to folks if you're interested in any of that, but they talk about the cultural significance of coon and possum dogs in the black community during slavery, and specifically in so during the antebellum and in the postbellum. And it was actually, if you talk about financial resources, people from the big cities in the North were coming down here in the years after the Civil War, specifically to be guided by black hunters at night for coons and possums.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's really cool pictures of like them, like a black guide and his pack of dogs or his couple dogs, and then what folks would have called like a sport, like a guy of means and kind of a suit and a hat standing there with a bunch of coon pelts hanging. And it's coon hunting has a real cultural significance in Southern black culture going back through slavery, which is one of the reasons I wanted to give it a shot with you. But yeah, man, I think it wasn't just during the fur boom of the 40s through the early 80s. It was all the way back to 1800, 1850, 1875.
Yeah, that's cool. Is that where usage for food came into? I mean, like,
as far as hunting coons and stuff at night. So there was, during slavery, and I think sometimes this gets miscategorized because sometimes people say like, there were these nice masters that would let slaves go hunt a little bit at night. And really what it was a way to not have to spend as much on food for slaves.
I see.
But there were slaves who were renowned and skilled for their, they'd have good dogs, and they would go out at night and they would tree possums and coons, and that would be used to supplement the slaves' diet. And because of that, there became a cultural significance, like in the South, in the deep South, even over to here in Arkansas, there's and it's kind of dying out now, but there's a very culturally significant meal of like baked raccoon and sweet potato, or baked possum and sweet potato. Yeah. And really, like, the only real remnant we have of that here is like the Gillette Coon Supper, which is like this big political event. But this was something that was passed down through slavery, and it's the same thing as like chitlins or chicken wings. These kind of
marginalized people eating
marginalized food.
There you go.
And finding a way to make it delicious and special and culturally significant to them, which is why I've been, this is my first time hunting coons with dogs, but I've been trapping them and cooking them.
It's why you brought coon to my house before the hunt yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, so you tell me what you did to that coon. So you came to my house and you'd cooked this a while back, but you tell me what you did.
Yeah, man. So it was just a coon I had trapped over in the Delta when I was scouting duck holes, and I put out some footholds, and then the next morning we went and ran the traps before we went and hunted, but caught this coon over off of the Cache River National Wildlife Refuge. I just cleaned it and quartered it up. I braised it, so I just seared it off. Seasoned it, salt and pepper, whatever seasonings you enjoy.
Braised it. Tell me what that even means.
Braising would be like cooking in an oven in a pan in shallow liquid.
Got it.
So, like in a braise, if you ever took the liquid past halfway up the meat, it would no longer be a braise. You'd start
boiling it.
You start boiling, or probably more like a poach. But so I just seared off the meat in a cast iron pan, and then deglaze the pan just with some red wine and some stock, and put that all together in a pan, with onions and peppers and garlic and just aromatics. Yeah. And covered it up and stuck it in an oven like at 250 for 3 or 4 hours, which is about the simplest way to prepare any game meat. It's essentially the preparation. I've heard you talk about doing ossobuco with bear shanks or deer shanks or whatever. Just did that, and then you've got just some really tender, palatable meat. You could do like that day we ate it just with mashed potatoes and I think collard greens that night. But I had some the next couple of days we ate some sandwiches, and I had a little bit left over, so I just vac sealed and stuck it in the freezer.
Yeah.
And so then when I came down here, I put it in a different vac bag with some rendered wild duck fat.
Wild duck fat.
Yeah, a little bit of chili powder, and then we just kind of did, like essentially an approximation of a sous vide to warm it up, and we did just like some Mexican street tacos and chopped onions, some cilantro, a little bit of salsa verde, and some hot sauce.
Yeah, it was good, man.
Yeah, man, it was like you said. I think it got a little more potent in the freezer, but
I've seen the same thing happen with bear meat, so I'm with you.
Yeah,
because you said that when it was fresh, and I mean you just cooked it.
Oh, you wouldn't have been able to tell it wasn't pot roast.
Okay, and so this time, I mean, it wasn't a negative taste, but it just had a little bit of, you could tell it wasn't pot roast.
There's a little bit of wild in it.
Same thing happens with bear, I think, when you reheat it.
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
Well, that happens with a lot of stuff. But if you get used to eating wild game, it was not unpalatable at all.
No. I mean, if we weren't trying to critique it, and not that I was critiquing it, but like if we had just been like hungry and were just eating to eat,
or if folks didn't know that was coon meat, probably never would have registered. But but I was talking to your wife about it. There is still something, even for me, like mentally, there's a little bit of a mental hurdle to get past with eating raccoon.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was good. And I've only eaten it one other time, maybe two other times. And the way we cooked it was just over an open fire, just an open flame. I mean, it was while we were in the field.
Yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of and I want to say this too, because, we really do talk a lot about utilization of wild game meat. It's like an essential part of hunting that makes it so valuable.
Sure.
There's also, and this falls within the parameters of the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation too. One of the 7 pillars of the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation is non-frivolous use of wildlife. So essentially, there are these pillars that like guided North American hunters to this place where wild game populations were saved and ethics were solid. And so the idea is that you don't just go shoot something just for fun and leave it there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's bad news. But non-frivolous use with the type of coon hunting that we're doing is depredation. I mean, it's like removing an unnatural number of animals from the landscape for the benefit of other wildlife and for the benefit of themselves. Coon populations, because there's so much unnatural food available in just the landscape, whether it be agriculture, cattle farming, whatever they're eating on, populations can just skyrocket. And then raccoons get distemper and a bunch of different stuff, and you can have these massive die-offs.
Okay.
Which coon hunters key into that stuff. I don't think we've had one around here in a while. But so anyway, so by hunting them, it helps them. And we harvest coons for their fur. I mean, coons are a fur-bearing animal. Legally, they are managed as a fur-bearing animal.
Yep.
Like, so just for anybody that was listening that wouldn't understand this, a deer is not a fur-bearing animal. Like, by legal prescription, we have to harvest all the meat off an animal. If you don't, you're like getting fined, probably not going to jail, but I mean, like, there's stiff penalties for what they call wanton waste.
I mean, you can lose your ability to continue to hunt.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, like, if you kill a deer, skin it and eat it. Yeah, coon is different in that they're managed as fur-bearing animals, so you can harvest the hide and not harvest the meat.
Same as a beaver or a muskrat or a bobcat.
Or a coyote. So, anyway, so it was cool really having coon cooked on purpose. Like, the way we've eaten it was just kind of out in the field, like I said. But it was really good. And with all this stuff with the COVID-19 coronavirus, I watched this video today about the Wuhan wildlife market, which I'm hoping that the general population does not equate any of that crazy stuff with what we're doing. And I think it's relevant to talk about that because we're sitting there talking about eating a raccoon, which is not – most people in this country don't eat raccoons.
It's on the fringes for sure.
It's on the fringe. So I want to be real clear, or I'm hoping that that people aren't saying, hey, wait a minute, these people in China that were eating all these crazy critters, are there not people that are doing that here in North America, talking about me and you? Mm-hmm. This is way different than that. I watched this morning the video of this wildlife market in Wuhan, China. It'll blow your mind. Have you seen it?
It's hard to look at.
You saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, they had it was. They had huge python snakes cut into 2-foot sections. Did you see that?
No, I haven't. But I've seen wildlife meat markets before.
Well, it was just someone walking through this Wuhan market with a cell phone, and literally, you can imagine one of these big pythons that's 10 foot long and big around your leg. There's just this bloody table with 2-foot sections of pythons. You'd go to the next table and there would be a stack of dogs, dead dogs that had the hair burned off of them, sitting there. There were these giant bats that had been skewered, and the wings cut off. The wings were in one pile and their bodies. I mean, it was bizarre.
Wow.
And that they say that's where this coronavirus COVID-19 originated. Was, I think they're saying now it came from a pangolin. And so I was talking to all this with Misty this morning. As I understand it, it wasn't that they ate a pangolin, because she was like, well, did they eat? They ate that thing and they got it. And I said, no, you can eat anything in the world as long as it's cooked well and you won't die.
Yeah, probably close.
Close? Are you?
Close, yeah.
I'm bouncing this off of you.
I mean, you could I would say most.
I mean, you could eat a bat, and if you had used sanitary means to harvest the meat, cook it well done. There's no anything in it. I've got a plot pup out here that's just wearing out something.
If you knew the potential for what that animal could be carrying, worst case scenario, and you cooked it with a method that would negate that.
Yeah.
So, I would not eat medium rare coon meat.
No.
Because I very much believe, because they eat a very similar diet to a bear and they're omnivorous, there's the potential they could be carrying trichinosis.
For sure.
But I'd eat any bear or any coon if it was.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Those things die at 145 degrees, and we cook almost all our food to 160 at minimum, unless it's a rare steak or something. But anyway, I told Misty, I was like, you can eat anything as long as it's sanitary, the meat is not spoiled, and it's cooked to the correct temperature. And I mean, I think that market showed that. I said the problem, from the research I've done, this COVID-19 stuff it was a live pangolin.
Okay.
And humans got it from that. From a live one, or from the process of butchering it. Because and again, there may be more information that's better than this, but what I read and heard was that that COVID-19 virus, pangolins basically have exactly what we're now getting.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so it was transmitted in one of those markets where there was a live pangolin, and whether the person that was moving around the cage or the person that killed it and skinned it got it on, but they didn't get it from eating it.
I got
That's
you.
my whole point in saying that.
Got you.
So you can eat anything. That's what I'm saying. This is all relevant.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about three things. I want to talk about the coon hunt we went on last night. I want to hear your perceptions of it because it was your first time to hunt like that. Ultimately, I want to get to talking about a deal that y'all did. So your brand is Black Duck Revival. So on Instagram, and that's kind of your brand. You've been on the podcast before. You're an old veteran. These people know who you are. But you had a revival where you had some people coming in from all over the country. Some of them were pretty familiar with hunting. Some of them weren't.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about this yet because
Okay.
we're going to talk about the coon hunt first. But I want to talk about the revival.
Okay.
Because y'all just did that coon hunt. Tell me what was it like? What did we do? What was like what you thought it would be and what wasn't? Or just what was your perception? Like, tell people what we did. And
Man, so we went out to some private land you had access to. He's got most of that in agriculture, it looked like.
Cattle. It was a cattle farm.
Yeah. And, we pulled up there with a few buddies and your boy Bear, and we set Jed and Fern out, and they ran around and sniffed and did some looking. And
It was raining.
yeah, kind of drizzling down.
Which is not opportune. Like I told you guys, most of the time you just don't go coon hunting if it's raining. If it's raining and you're wanting to go deer hunting, you're probably like, well, maybe the deer will be moving. But usually coon hunting, you would just stay home. But you'd come up from Little Rock or that part of the world, and it was like, man, we got to go. So I wasn't really sure. I have hunted in the rain, but it's just not that common. So I wasn't sure if the coons would be stirring at all.
Yeah.
And they've got to be stirring for the most part for them to be able to find one. Now they could tree a layup coon, you got the question right on the test. But usually they got to come out of the trees and make some scent. But go ahead.
Man, I'd just say simply, like, overall, I had a blast. I really enjoyed it. It's interesting because, I mostly associate hunting as like an individual activity, and it's very different than that. I associate hunting with being as quiet as possible, and it's different than that. But I had a real blast. I liked the dogs a lot. I had heard you talk about plots before, but and I'm a guy that I have dogs. I've got a duck dog. I like the size of those dogs. They have good personalities. I like the athleticism of them, like when Jed was jumping up that tree. And really my thought, I had two thoughts about it. Is I thought, one, that they would just be making noise nonstop and it would drive me crazy. They'd be like underneath me, just rawr, rawr, rawr.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case at all. And it was actually so different than what I thought, because when you did hear them, it was exciting.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's get over there to them.
Yeah.
So I loved all of that. And I can just see, like, I was already in my mind. I was like, all right, I get one of these dogs. I could 2 more years. I could take the girls out. You were talking about that, you could have them running squirrels in the day and coons at night. And as soon as you said that, I was like, man, I'm probably going to have to make it happen.
Your countenance almost dropped when you heard me say that. You were like, doggone it, now I'm going to have to get one.
Yeah, I'm going to get one, and I'm going to have to ask for forgiveness later. But no, that short experience, I can see how folks can be all about that. And I could see how that could transfer to running, like a big carnivore, or I guess a bear is an omnivore. I guess
they're called
both,
a carnivore.
right?
Yeah,
okay.
They're both.
But and I'll tell you something else I was thinking about, because I've trapped, 30 coons in my life, live traps, but mostly footholds, and I have mixed feelings about it ethically, often. But my thought, I'd had this thought last night. I was like, this is more ethical to me. This is more ethical than how I've been trapping raccoons.
Really?
Yeah, because
that's interesting.
It was because the outside perspective is you think of this raccoon being terrified, or this animal being terrified. Yeah. Which I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's afraid, it's running, it's trying to stay alive. But it got, they treed that first coon pretty quickly. We went over there, dispatched it. If it was me, I'd rather go out that way than get my hand stuck in a steel trap and maybe being there for, half a day before the trap gets checked. You know? Now, I'm not saying that I think that trapping is unethical, but I think all of this stuff we do, I think that thinking about the ethics of it and allowing yourself to have a shift in what's appropriate for you or what makes sense for you that's a mindful way to go about it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that I'll never trap another raccoon.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
But I had that thought. I was like, I think I feel better about killing this raccoon this way than the ways I've done it before. I
interesting. See, I would have never even thought about it from that way, but and I guess a perception too that people have sometimes is that when you tree a coon, that it's like in some kind of trauma. Man, that thing was 50, 60 feet up in a tree.
Mm-hmm.
They don't move. They just sit. They're just chilled out. Like they have effectively used the biological mechanism that they have to escape predation. They've done it.
Yeah.
They outran the dogs, climbed a tree. They're sitting up there happy as they can be. They're just like, when are these guys going to leave so I can crawl back down and go eating berries like I was before, And then obviously we interrupt that by taking them. But
sure.
You see, like there's really not trauma, and now they.
Yeah, I don't know. I've thought about. I still continue to think about that because. But here I think this is kind of what it comes down to, Clay, is that there has to be some acceptance as a hunter that you're affecting the lifespan of this animal. You know what I mean? I don't usually say that I harvested an animal because I think it's almost disingenuous. Like what I did was I killed an animal.
Yeah.
But there can be meaning and nuance and beauty and nobility in that if I go about it in a way that is meaningful and nuanced and authentic and full of consideration.
Yeah.
It's what I bring to it. I don't feel like I've done something wrong if I kill a deer. But there are ways that I could go about killing a deer that would be very wrong to me.
Right.
The way that I try and go about it, I don't feel guilty. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't sometimes have kind of like emotional pangs when I'm hunting and I've been successful. But to me, that's part of nuance and consideration and just being a participatory member of, society. And we talked about it like, and I talked to a buddy of mine about this when we were snow goose hunting. Like you would never, I think it would be rare to see a picture of like 5 deer just piled on top of each other on the tailgate of a truck. Like people would find something bothersome about that. But that's exactly what people do with ducks.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? And I was talking to him, I was like, why would the one be so bothersome or offensive to so many people, but they don't feel that way about ducks? And it's really I think it's a form of speciesism. It's a way that people say that people that are completely against eating red meat will eat fish. It's because it's so different from you that you can compartmentalize it.
Yeah.
An insect, a fish, a bird. These are very different than us. You start getting into mammalian creatures. And we even talked about it like a raccoon is much more, its face is more emotive in a way we understand than a deer is.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you start wrestling or wrestle. I've been in Arkansas a long time, man. You start wrestling with these questions. And I think that the consideration and the back and forth, that's part of it. That's part of you being completely immersed in it and allowing yourself to feel everything and think about everything and grow and wax and wane. That's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's life even when you are participating in ending sentient life.
What I'm hearing you say is that as hunters, not even as hunters. Let me back that up. Let me back that way up. As humans, the reality of mankind is that our existence requires that we inflict trauma on something. It requires that, to be a human in 2020 means that something has died to give you a place to live. Now, whether it could go back all the way to, some urban person that says that's not true. Well, where you live used to be wildlife habitat. Mm-hmm. Where, okay, you're a vegan. Well, the plants that you eat and the fruit and the vegetables that took wildlife habitat from, that ground was cleared from what it once was.
The farming practices are going to continue to perpetually end the existence. When you run a big combine through a field, you're grinding up birds and mice and all sorts of stuff.
I heard Shane Mahoney the other day on a podcast say that if all of North America went vegan, like if all of a sudden the president was just like, you know what, it is law, everyone will be vegan now. Mm-hmm. We're going to shut down all hunting, all meat production. They would have to clear a agricultural field. It's not one field, but you'd have to clear enough space, basically the size of Canada, to feed all of us.
Wow.
And so his whole point is that being vegan is not the answer for saving actual animal life, because you would have to kill, because how many animals would you displace if you had ag the size of the country of Canada? That's essentially what he said.
Yeah, wow.
And so, you would be extirpating bears and moose and caribou and all the songbirds and all of this and all of that.
And insects. And you'd be affecting the natural way in ways that we couldn't even fathom.
Yeah.
Every time we try to get rid of something, there's so many repercussions that we could not anticipate.
Yeah. We've just got to be, as hunters, we've just got to be okay. Yeah. So we were talking about like evaluating like the trauma like this, like a coon would have, like being in a trap or being in a tree treated by dogs. And essentially what we're saying is that we have evaluated that and we're okay with that. That's what we're saying, and we're not an ethical hunter, a thoughtful human is going to do everything within his power to minimize any kind of suffering or trauma. That is what the modern North American sportsman does. But we know that we've got a goal. We went hunting last night and our goal was to kill a coon.
Yeah. And, but I think too, is that with all that being said, I think it's okay to change your position. I think actually, to me, a real mark of an intelligent person is that they are willing to change their positions on stuff. And sometimes your position on something changes situationally, like when I first started hunting deer, I hunted deer several times over bait. And while I understand the absolute necessity in many places to use bait as a way to harvest or kill enough deer to manage the population, I've decided for me as a personal choice that that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah. It's okay that I changed in that pursuit.
Yeah, you're not a flip-flopper.
Yeah, it's all right to have a paradigm shift. That's what intelligent and thoughtful people do, because as you pull in more information and as you immerse yourself in experiences, you find what's right for you. So I just want to say that because I think sometimes people think I did it this way and that's the way I'm always going to do it. I've met lots of people that have, killed a bear or killed two bears, and then they decide that for whatever reason, they don't want to anymore. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that they're indicting everyone who's hunting bears. Yeah. They're making a personal choice for themselves. Or they say maybe they had killed a couple bears in the Ozarks on family land over bait, and then they decided that what they're looking for out of hunting is going to necessitate them going someplace else and trying it a different way. Yeah. Or they want to see and hunt in a part of the country that doesn't allow baiting for whatever those management reasons are. Yeah. And so to get what they want out of that experience, because like we talked about last night before we hunted, I'm not just hunting for food, I'm hunting as really at its core as an existential examination of my existence. And my understanding of that is going to change as I learn more, as I mature, as I meet different people, as I have different experiences. So anyway.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. You know, what you said about like using the example of like Arkansas hunting over bait, that's essentially what I'm doing and have done for a long time. I hadn't killed a bear over bait in Arkansas actually since 2006.
Really?
Yeah.
It's been a long time, yeah.
I will kill a bear over bait in Oklahoma, though.
Okay.
Different. It goes back to that personal, like this personal thing inside of you. In Oklahoma, the access that I have to property, the distance it is to drive, my goals over there, because, you know, we've got some good places where you can take some big bears.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hunt over bait in Oklahoma. In Arkansas, I have not killed a bear over bait in Arkansas, I think, since 2006.
Wow.
And people wouldn't know that unless they're really paying attention. I mean, now I've killed bears over bait in Canada and, you know, lots of different stuff. But, yeah, pretty much in Arkansas, I'm interested in killing them in the national forest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I won't do something different at some point, but, you know, next year I may decide I want to take one over bait in Arkansas. But now we got to evaluate. We got to evaluate ourselves constantly, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I like it. I like it, man. I like it. What did so you listened to our podcast with Roy Clark with the hound hunting with bears. What was your impression of all that?
Well, yeah, we were talking about it on the phone, and I told you that I thought you were doing some really good work, like some Lomaxian
I was going to ask you, what? I don't even know what that means. I don't know who that is. Lomax.
So Alan Lomax did. I want to say it was I want to say it was funded by like the WPA, like the Works Progress Administration. You know, it was a economic incentive after the Great Depression. There were Works Progress Administration projects like building roads and forestry roads and roads in cities and painting post offices all over the country and all sorts of different things. But this guy took a recorder largely through the American South and recorded like old blues musicians, asked them about their experiences, you know, talked to people that had that were old enough that they had grown up in slavery or their parents had been slaves, and recorded their music and recorded interviews with them and stuff. And I was struck by what you were doing in that interview because, I mean, we were talking about like there's the cadence of his voice and the words he used and his diction, like that's probably a dying thing. You know, there's in 50 years, there's going to be very few people that sound exactly like he does, you know? Yeah. And he's also bringing generational knowledge from what bear hunting was like, you know, 50 years ago to what it's like now. You're talking about before GPS collars, all the stuff you see on videos, like that wasn't there. He was tromping through the Appalachian Mountains. He's over in the Appalachians, isn't he? Yeah, he's tromping through there, finding, you know, he said that, you know, you might have to be out there all night trying to get your dogs. I thought it was really neat and interesting. I enjoyed, because like even the guys that he had been taking out that had grown up going out with him, they're probably around our age.
Yeah, most of those guys were in their 30s.
Yeah, and they exist in a very different world than he was in at that age, you know? The use of technology, the way they speak, all of that is going to be very different.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I just thought it was really important and interesting to put that information in a time capsule.
Yeah. 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 Me too. You know, there's not a lot of people. Boy, it's hard to even understand what I'm trying to say, because there's lots of people that bear hunt with hounds over in Tennessee and all over in that part of the world. But there's not a lot of people that are as ingrained in it from a lifestyle perspective as him.
Sure.
And I don't think you could even do that in modern times and still be a functional human unless you were exponentially wealthy. I mean, it's almost like he's devoted his life to bear hunting with hounds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has. And and guys still do that. I don't want to say that. There's guys listening to this right now that are as hardcore as possible for a human to be when it comes to that kind of stuff. But he's a relic. He's kind of a relic, and even more about him than just the way he handles his dogs and stuff. He's kind of a relic. He really is. I was talking to a guy. Well, I don't want to give away the next podcast. Actually, yeah. I was talking to Brooks Blevins. I think we're going to release his podcast before we did a podcast with Brooks Blevins, this Ozark historian.
Yeah.
And he gave examples of how people always do what we're doing with Roy Clark, like saying, man, he's the last of a dying breed. When he's gone, that's going to be gone. And he gave examples of even back in the 1800s how writers did that with people.
Sure.
And, so he's like, there's always something that is really unique that is probably going to be lost and probably will, that you move on. And he was sitting there talking to me and said, one day what you're doing will be like that. Like people talk about you, and he wasn't saying Clay Newcomb. He was just saying we're doing stuff now that people will kind of have the same feelings about.
Absolutely.
Just kind of interesting.
But it is so important. Like we talked the other day about those Foxfire Chronicle books.
Yeah.
And someone did something very similar in the 60s and 70s and went to Appalachia and talked to people. And there is stuff in those books that, like we were talking about, like how you catch a possum and feed them on cornbread and milk to clean them out, or using a green stick to skin a coontail, or even stuff like how to make a wooden wagon wheel is in those books. Because those people were relics in the 60s, but it's weird to think that the 60s were 60 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you've got multiple generations since then. And I just think that stuff like that is so important because, and you did it different yesterday than I had seen it. I've always split a green stick halfway between and then pinched the tail between that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
I see what you're saying.
That would be, if I hadn't read that in a Foxfire Chronicle book, 12 years ago, before I'd ever even hunted, like I wouldn't know that. And I guarantee you I show it to my girls, and so they're going to be using information that's really probably hundreds of years old when they do that.
Yeah.
And there's value in that. There really is a lot of value in that.
Yeah. Pretty unique stuff. Hey, tell me about the revival.
Okay.
Are we ready to jump to there?
Yeah, we can.
Do you have
jump
anything
there.
else to say about the hound stuff?
No, man. I thought it was really cool. I hope to be able to do it again. And yeah, man. Like I said, I've tried hunting different things in different ways, and they don't all resonate with me.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as people are being ethical and thoughtful and legal about what they're doing, there's room for people to do things different ways. Now, I do think it's important that as individuals, we find what's right for us. But that could be extrapolated into any aspect of your life. That could be your marriage or how you raise your children or the kind of car you drive.
Yeah.
I think if you're thoughtful about it and you're willing to change your opinion on it based on new evidence and new experiences, then you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
I like what you said there. And it kind of goes back to that individual thing. Like if you can't explain with a clear conscience to somebody why you do what you do, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yep.
Like even like me hunting over bait, like people have heard me talk about hunting over bait and they're kind of like, oh, I get it. And I think it's because the way I talk about it is the way I think about it. And it's like, I've thought about it and I have reasons and I guess that could be applied in anywhere. Like if you can hunt deer over a corn pile and be able to look a non-hunter in the eye and truly tell them why you do that, which is from a sincere place of, man, I can only hunt on weekends. It's perfectly legal. I can be selective in the animals I harvest. It's efficient. I can get the animal to come right in. It's not walking. I mean, there's a million reasons why hunting over a pile of corn can be legitimate.
It's exponentially more honest and interactional than going to the grocery store and getting some, commercially raised protein. And I will say this, because I think that folks get caught up in us and them, whatever that might be. I have met very few people, like most of the people that I, hang out with, I'm friends with, and that's kind of changing because I'm getting a broader friend group. But just traditionally, like I'm really about the only one who hunts. But it's very, very, very rare that I can't communicate to someone that doesn't why I do and them not look at it as a positive.
Yeah.
It really is. There's really only been one person that just thought I was a scumbag and kind of stopped being my friend because I started hunting.
Really?
Yeah, but almost everybody else understands it. And I've seen people get past just tolerating it into enjoying it and appreciating it.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to do it. Like my dad has no interest in hunting, but my dad likes that I bring him venison every year.
Yeah.
And he
the statistics that I've read, most recent statistics about the general population of the U.S., like the high 70s percentage-wise, like 70-something to 80% of people approve of modern hunting if it's for food and the animals utilized.
Mm-hmm.
Like most people are okay with us hunting.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in a house where we didn't have guns. I wasn't allowed to have water guns until I was 10 years old.
Really?
I remember the first time I saw my grandpa's deer rifle in a closet when I was like 6, and I shook with terror and sobbed.
Did you really?
Oh man, I was terrified. I wish that gun was still around. I'd love to have it. But so I'm coming from that background.
Wow.
But it's still like my mom was not hostile towards hunters. What I always heard was, as long as they eat what they're killing, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that's
encouraging. When I read this stat just a few weeks ago, longer than that, but sometimes especially being in the bear hunting world, I get this perception that everybody's against me. Like I kind of have that persecution mentality. And I think in bear hunting, we have a unique challenge in that most people don't just automatically think that someone's killing a bear and eating it. And so we're showing people, yeah, we are. Yeah. And it's actually, we're not just doing it just because we have to. We are, bear meat is incredible. We're living off the stuff. So it's encouraging to me to see that people are approving of it. I
really do think that most people are. And, it's just like anything else. Often the loudest people are on the fringes in whatever you want to talk about, and so those might be the folks that you're hearing a lot from. But yeah, I've had largely positive experiences introducing people to it.
Yeah.
And I'd even say that there's people in my life that had no experience with it when I started hunting, 10 years ago, and that now they get a sense of pride from the fact that I do it. Like it's really moved to that position.
That's good, man. That's good.
But anyway, so the revival.
Tell me about the revival.
So, I got this place in Brinkley, Arkansas called Black Duck Revival. And people ask me all the time, like, what is your brand? What are you trying to do with it? And I'm not quite sure that I have the right answer for it yet. I'm hoping in the coming months to really be able to solidify that. But what I did know is that I wanted to use it as a way to facilitate discussion. So what I did was just, through social media, Instagram, I found a few people that I thought were really interesting. And I go back to this word of nuance. It's really important to me. They were interesting and nuanced and intelligent and thought-provoking, and they were coming from different backgrounds and different experiences. And so I invited a few people to come down to Brinkley. We hunted speckled-belly geese. We hunted mallards in the timber, and we just spent time together. We cooked wild game meals together. We ate, And we just talked about our different experiences. And we had women, we had people of color, we had folks that had been hunting for a long time, had been in the hunting industry for a long time. We had folks that had only been doing it for a couple of years. And we just kind of came together and hung out and cooked and hunted and learned from each other. And man, when it was all said and done, it was everything I could have hoped it would have been. You know, it was super cool and super fun. We had some good hunts, which, you know, that's kind of like, if you're there to hunt, that's a social lubricant, is having some productive hunts. I got to kind of feel like an ambassador for how I hunt and where I hunt and where I live, because the people that I brought in were from Colorado. I had two ladies from Colorado. I had a guy from Folsom, California. You know, like them coming to Arkansas was something different. And, you know, some of them came with preconceived notions and stereotypes and thoughts about what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, just in everything, there are some truths to that. And there are there's big differences between Brinkley, Arkansas and Denver, Colorado. But man, it was just so productive and so positive. And it really solidified in my mind that that's an event that I want to do every year. I'm going to try and get a little bit bigger and have a few more people this next year. And we did some filming. Brent Reeves from Reckless Drift Media. He did some filming for us. And we're going to have a video coming out kind of talking about it and showing some folks what we did. But, man, it was just a blast.
Brent. Hurry up and get that finished, Brent.
Oh, take your time, Brent. It's all right.
Let's talk to Brent for a while. No.
But, man, it was really a Courtney Nicholson who came. She works for Hunt to Eat, that a lot of people are probably familiar with. She used a term that I thought was so apropos. She said it was soul filling. That's really, like, I felt like I came out of it, you know, richer. And like, I took Courtney and Crystal Egley. They had a little time before they had to catch their plane. I took them to my house and introduced them to my wife and my daughters. And, you know, we've kind of continued the friendship. And yesterday,
can you tell who was there and what they do?
Yeah.
Like, so Courtney.
So Courtney Nicholson works for Hunt to Eat. Yeah, which is, like, everyone's seen their T-shirts. She's been like kind of in the hunting industry probably for the last decade. Super cool lady, really intelligent. She's got a real strong background in, like, film and videography, and I just can't say enough good stuff about her. And then there was Crystal Egley, who works she's a videographer for the Colorado DNR, and she's actually right now being featured on a video series they're doing called My First Big Game Hunt. And man, Crystal is a super strong personality, really committed to the things that are important about her. She kind of pushed me a little bit and stretched she kind of challenged me in a couple ways, but in such a awesome and positive way. And I think so highly of her. And she's doing really cool, interesting stuff as far as promoting hunting and the outdoors, you know, to people that might not kind of traditionally fit in that. So she's biracial. She's a person of color. She's a woman. She, you know, lives in the middle of Denver, and she's still wrestling with, you know, what she's comfortable with and getting over kind of maybe like a fear of firearms, and just doing so much really awesome, cool stuff. And then the other guy is named Brandon Goodwin on Instagram. He goes by the Hunting Student. He's a guy that came to hunting, I think, just a few years ago. You know, he's a Northern California guy. He grew up snowboarding and skiing, and he just found, you know, he found purpose in hunting and doing a very different style of hunting than I do. Like, he's a Western hunter. Yeah, you know, like the first deer he ever killed was a big mule deer. I think that was this past year, and he really focuses on kind of connecting other people in the hunting community. So, I mean, he does produce content, but he's really good about, like, on Fridays, he does like a wild game recipe thing where he brings all these awesome wild game dishes that people are posting all over the internet and puts them out there for people to see. He's just kind of, I think of Brandon as like just a conduit and a facilitator. And then we had, like, my buddy Ben Batten came through. He's a chief for the Arkansas Game and Fish. We had Brent there, who's just got a ton of interesting knowledge and experience and was a professional duck guide for like 25 years. And So those were kind of like, and we had a couple other. I had some friends of mine come through, like my buddy Nate, the guy who taught me how to bow hunt. I got to have him on a speckled belly hunt.
Nice.
My buddy Kent, who's he's a welder. He used to be kind of like a semi-pro skateboarder. He came and hunted with us. So it was just like kind of a really cool motley crew of people from disparate backgrounds that were able to see what they had in common. And what we had in common was way more than just hunting. That hunting was just a way that kind of brought us together. And then we could see all these similarities and strengths of each other. And like I said, nuance. And I don't know. I'm kind of talking in a circular nature now, but man, it was awesome.
How long were y'all together? 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days.
They came down like on a Thursday afternoon. We hunted Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they went back on Sunday evening.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, I look forward to seeing whatever kind of video content you guys produce out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a little bit of preliminary stuff, and it's cool. I think it's going to be neat. I got Brent was real cool with working with me, and he let me do the music for it. So hopefully that kind of, I'm hoping that, if I'm talking and we're doing this event and we're kind of showing my vision for stuff, and then I made the music for it, that it really kind of lends itself to like a holistic product and very representational of just kind of my ideas on stuff.
Yeah. Well, the Black Bear Bonanza, you were going to come to the Bear Bonanza, weren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't told you yet, but I was going to see if you'd be on the live podcast we were going to do.
Oh, well.
Because we were going to have 6 guys.
Okay.
And we were going to talk about all things bear hunting in Arkansas, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And you last year spent a lot of time trying to kill a bear in National Forest.
Yeah, I tried, and I was not successful, but
and that's kind of what brought us together, just talking about your hunting. So we know you're a waterfowl guy. We know so Arkansas is like divided between the Arkansas Highlands, which would be kind of in the northwestern section of Arkansas if you divided the whole state, and then the Delta, the Southeast Delta, which would be world-renowned waterfowl hunting and agricultural land pretty much. And so you're living more down the Delta, so you've kind of made your living down there in the duck world and deer hunting world down there. So last year you started coming up into the National Forest in the Highlands of Arkansas, and you worked hard, man, and learned a ton, didn't you?
Yeah, I learned
a
tremendous amount. Yeah, and I finally found a pile of fresh bear sign, and that was really kind of my trophy for the. Like, this is a weird thing, but I'm actually gonna frame a picture of this big pile of bear scat I found.
There you go.
Because I kept saying
that is why you're on this podcast, because you are framing a picture of bear scat.
Well, it was and we talked on the phone. When I found that I think you were just landed in Montana, and you were super generous and talked on the phone to me and gave me some advice for like an hour. But I want to say that couple of days was the highlight of my hunting year. It really was, because it was hard, and the information I gathered was well earned. But now I've got it. And like I told you the other day, like, I still think about ducks all the time, but I think about getting a black bear every single day. I think about where I can find it down there in that bottom of that holler, and where I'm hunting at. And I think that I can be way more successful. I mean, like, honestly, I've still never seen a bear in the woods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking for the first bear I see be the bear that I kill. Yeah. Which is a weird kind of dichotomy to think about as well.
That'd be kind of a weird kind of hunt, wouldn't it? If you think about it. Because, like, when you're deer hunting, I guess it's possible for somebody that's a deer hunter to kill the first deer they see. But if you're, like, a really dedicated deer hunter, well, that's not the way to say it. It would be cool if you killed the first bear you
probably
ever
have
saw.
Seen deer out in a field or something,
Yeah, or if you're a duck hunter, you've seen ducks before.
Sure. Yeah, so I've never seen a bear in the woods.
Yeah,
but I'm just fascinated by them. I think they're incredibly interesting. I think the story in Arkansas about them is fascinating. And I think it's amazing too, because if I am successful, and this year I'm going to try and do it with a recurve, but if I'm successful and I can kill a bear down in the bottom of that holler, then getting that bear out of there will be an endurance test by its own right, So when I know eventually I'll be successful, it will be steeped in so much meaning to me,
right?
That in a way you almost don't want it to happen yet because you want to keep drawing it out. But I feel like I busted hump hard enough that I'll be all right with being successful eventually.
Man, I tip my hat to you big time for the amount of effort that you put into it, and your mind frame is perfect. I mean, because that's the way I think about bear hunting in national forest here in Arkansas every single year. It's almost like on a micro scale. You're looking at this now from like a career bear hunting deal. If you've never killed one, you're trying to kill one. It doesn't matter when it happens, but eventually it's going to happen. Like, now I'm kind of like season by season thinking like that, and it's, you can't go out and be discouraged by lack of success. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
you can't because if you go out one day and don't find a single speck of bear sign of any kind, that should actually encourage you, because you have eliminated a big section off the map.
Yes.
And you are one step closer to the day when you do find bear sign. I mean, that's the way I think about it.
Well, I would say that in a different way. I think it's about reframing what your definition of success is.
Yeah.
Like, I did not kill a bear last year. I've still never eaten bear meat, but I can tell the difference between a log that was ripped up by an armadillo or just rotted away and what's been ripped up by a bear. I know for sure what bear scat looks like, and if they're eating black gum or if they're eating acorns. I didn't know what black gum was before last year.
Right.
I had never been in the Ouachita Mountains really before. And I was telling you about like finding coon tracks in the algae in little Ouachita Mountain, just a little pool of water there on the side of a mountain. I really didn't know if I could crawl down thousands of feet down in the bottom of that holler and come back out of it. And not only did I figure out I could do it, like I told you, I was driving multiple hours in the morning to go hunt. I'd hunt all day. I'd drive home in time to get the kids to sleep. I'd sleep a few hours and I'd do it again. I did like 5 days in a row one week,
That's crazy, man.
So now I'm not going to do that next year. I'm going to take the first week of bow season off and just stay.
Yeah.
But every single day I was learning something about the world around me and about myself. So that's success. You know?
Yeah. Big time, man. That's cool. Super cool. I'm shocked at what you just said, though. You said something that shocked me, and it makes sense. I just never thought about it. You've never had bear meat?
Mm-mm.
We can remedy that.
Yeah, I've never. You're the first person I've ever. No, you're the second person I'd ever met. I think that had, eaten a bear.
Really?
The guy that introduced me to duck hunting. He had a bear. He had a color phase bear in his house. A bear rug up on the wall. And I asked him what the story was, and he said, "Man, I was deer hunting in the national forest, and I came across an oak flat, and I could tell a bear had been in there. So I went in there the next day, got in there early, and he came in, and I killed it. And he said, and it took me. I killed him at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was 9 o'clock at night before I got him back to the truck.
Wow.
And when he said that, I was like, I want to do that. That's everything I want. That's everything about hunting that appeals to me.
Yeah.
And it took years of me kind of building competency until I thought that I could do that. Because like when I first started hunting, like my buddy said, Jonathan couldn't find his way out of a brown paper bag. I'd get lost in 100 yards in the dark. And I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? I think I can start trying to do it. So, and then it was just kind of serendipitous that we met each other, and I've been listening to your podcast and stuff a bunch. But yeah, short answer is like, I didn't know a bunch of people and still don't know a bunch of people that have killed bears.
Yeah. And
I didn't know until I've been this old. I didn't know how many you had gotten, like, so you've been eating bear meat for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like there's probably not a whole bunch of people that can say that.
There's more than you'd think, I think.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure there's, I mean, just from looking at the content you produce, I can tell there's lots of people. But I guarantee you, I could go up to, in Little Rock, Arkansas, the most populated town in the state, I could go to 2,000 people and ask them if they'd ever eaten bear meat. And I bet you I wouldn't find 5 that had.
Yeah.
I bet you I wouldn't find 2 that had.
Yeah.
If I just went to the middle of downtown Little Rock and asked them, you'd probably find no one.
We're going to do a podcast. Me and you walking down the street.
Ever eaten bear meat?
Well, no, that's good, man. Well, no, I thought it was awesome the way you hunted last year for bears specifically, and it's a lot of work, but that's what makes it fun. Is that it's a super challenge, and you don't get immediate gratification very often. That being said, I've heard of guys that for the first time hunted like you hunted and killed a bear. There's been this kind of revival of well, it's not really a revival because we've never really done it quite like this. Historically, bears in Arkansas were hunted with dogs. I mean, back when we had bears.
Yeah.
So, we had bears for 10,000 years, okay? From the last ice age to now. And then by the 1920s, 30s, 40s, there was this window when there were no bears here effectively. There's some bear, the story. And then so all of a sudden now there's all these bears back. Well, the guys back in the 1800s, they were using hounds to kill most of their bear. Opportunistic deer hunter or somebody that saw a bear might shoot it, but they weren't creeping around the woods with a bow.
Was Boone running dogs? Was Daniel Boone running dogs?
Oh yeah, he ran dogs, but he killed so many bears. I mean, he was killing them however he could, but he absolutely used hounds.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the way they hunted them. But I say all that to say there's been this I keep wanting to use the word resurgence. It's really not a resurgence. It's like we're kind of pioneering kind of not a new way to hunt them. It's not new, but guys weren't slipping around trying to kill them back in the 1800s with a bow, just in acorn flats, But that's what we're trying to do now. And it's so there's been this resurgence. So a lot of guys have reached out to me, telling me about their stories and stuff. Guys in Oklahoma quite a bit too. And there's one guy that hunted just the way you did and killed a bear opening morning. Scouted.
Really? That's awesome.
Scouted, he just found exactly what you want to find.
Yeah.
Found a white oak acorn flat with a bear sign in it, went in there the first day, killed a bear. And he knew what he'd done though. Like I've never talked to the guy. We just emailed back and forth. He sent me a picture of the bear. And he recognized that what he did was not normal. It wasn't always going to be that easy. And I told him, I was like, man, you drew the needle out of the haystack. That's awesome.
Well, he might have to chase success like that for another few years. I mean, maybe he was born to do it too. But, man, I got lucky. The first deer I ever got was not really that hard.
Right.
I'm fine with having to earn this.
Yeah.
But like you said, it took me 12 days to find a pile of bear scat. 12 days of hunting from sun up to sundown to find a pile of bear scat.
I hope that discourages everybody that's thinking they want to go do this.
Yeah, stay out of the woods.
Just leave it for me and Jonathan.
At least until I get one.
No, that's awesome, man. Awesome. Well, hey, anything, closing comments, closing thoughts about anything we've talked about or anything you want to tell people?
No, man. If anybody's not tired of listening to me talk yet, you can follow me at blackduckrevival.com or on Instagram at blackduckrevival. And I was talking to Clay. I'm going to start a podcast here probably in the next few weeks.
There you go.
We're going to record probably the first episode this week here while we're on coronavirus lockdown at my house. And so if you start following me on social media or on the internet, you can look forward to hopefully seeing that soon. I'm going to do a lot more writing, and we're going to start doing a lot more video content. So, yeah, I appreciate you having me out, man, and having me in your home. And like I told you before, man, you got a great family, and just glad to be friends with you, bud.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Well, we got to keep the wild places wild because that's where the bears live.
That's right.
Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer is going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.